All right. Good evening, everybody. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. It's Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. This is our Christmas show. We should all have our Christmas hats and tops on. It's just 6:30.
I didn't get that memo, Lynn.
That's okay. Bob Hope always had his Christmas show.
Yeah.
We can do the Pledge of Allegiance. Who should we have? John, you stand for us?
Let me get the flag up here.
Okay.
There we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America,
Yeah.
to the republic for which it
which
stands,
stands
One
one nation
under God,
under God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you.
Don't seem right to be saying that without saying good morning, sister.
I know. John Senior. Okay, Randy, if you want to do roll call.
Okay, when I say roll call tonight, when I announce your name, just state where you are at. So if you're at Marquette Township, say Marquette Township. If you're anywhere else, say wherever you are at. That's going to be one of the new requirements for the virtual meetings coming up. So we might as well
You
start.
need the
now.
address, Randy?
I don't need the address, just where you're at.
All right.
So Trustee LaRue
At home, here
in Marquette Township, the same.
in Marquette Township.
Trustee Everson.
I'm in the wonderful metropolis of Marquette Township.
Okay, Trustee Marks.
John Marks, President, Marquette Township.
Okay, and Trustee Winslow.
Marquette Township.
Treasurer Johnson.
It's for me.
Okay, Clerk Rattari is here in Marquette Township and Supervisor Durant.
Marquette Township.
Okay, staff present is Manager Kangas, our attorney Roger Zappa, our fire chief Dan Shanahan, our planner Jason McCarthy is here, and our staff planner Ryan Dietrichson is here, and our superintendent of public works Lenny Bodinas is here. Committee members, I see Mike Springer from Planning, Recreation, and Roads.
Great. We got a full house tonight. That's awesome. All right. Any emails, Randy, for public comment?
I have none for public comment, no written correspondence.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board before we get going? Okay. I'd like to give a second because there's a little delay here. And then that takes off board member comment. So tonight's consent agenda consists of approval of regular meeting minutes December 1st, 2020. We have bills payable in the amount of $131,981.87. We have a budget amendment 2020-12, so Randy can read that. We have fire department activity report for November, as well as the sheriff's department activity report. Charter Communication changes their lineup this month again, and the financials from November. We just need approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion and support. Randy, roll call, please.
And who supported that? Did you support that, Ernie?
Yeah,
John
Mark.
Mark.
John Marks did, okay. Before I do the roll call, I'll explain the budget amendment here. So this is present to the board, the budget amendment 2020-12. Now, this is going to be a longer one because it's the end of the year and there's quite a few things in there. So I'll give the highlights of that, which is Authorization is requested to make year-end changes, and the general fund revenue is decreased due to lower taxes, community center revenue, and transfer in from the liquor law fund. Expenditures are increased due to the vacation payouts, building and ground supplies, planned attorney services, and the community center door lock system. Decreases are from professional services, contracted services, and engineer, as well as appropriation, community promotion, and supervisor travel and conference. Fire fund shows decreases in revenue, local community stabilization share and expenditures, administrative travel and conference. Liquor law enforcement fund reflects decreases in both revenue and expenditures as the proceeds from the state were less than expected. And the library fund shows increases in both revenue and expenditures as the original budget didn't include the Commercial Forest Act and LCSS proceeds. So that's the highlight of the budget amendment. In roll call vote will be Clerk Rattari will be yes. Trustee Marks,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
Yes,
Trustee Winslow,
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you for that. Then we just need approval of the remainder of the agenda unless somebody wants to make any changes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the rest of the agenda.
support.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
Yes,
Trustee Winslow,
Yes.
Trustee Marks,
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Just for the public's purposes, we don't typically do roll call votes on all of our motions, but because we're Zooming, we want to make sure that we have accurate voting. So we've been doing that with our Zoom meeting. I'm not aware of any conflicts of interest on the agenda for tonight. So our first item to consider is staff reports. We have the fire department first, Chief.
I am unmuted, I believe. Not a lot. You have my reports in front of you. And it looks like a pretty thick packet again tonight. The only thing of interest, we did have an interview in November. It went very well. And vaccinations, we got word today, they'll probably be starting next week. The EMS personnel, and they will not be staggering these, which we were a little concerned about. Everybody will be getting them on the same day. So if we're all getting sick, we're all getting sick on the same day. Does anybody have any questions on the reports? I mean, everything's there, but I don't want to just repeat what's there.
I'd just like to say it was a very good, thorough report, and thank you for your time on it.
Thank you. And I am here also in case you have any questions on 9D, I believe it was. My first board action item, returning money. Okay. If there's,
Lynn, can I ask Chief a question?
Go ahead, Pete.
When you shut off the sirens, any response, pro or con?
that's interesting, Pete. That's a good question too, by the way. It's been off for what now, 2 months approximately?
Yeah.
And most of the firefighters understand. We all miss it. We do. And we are in the process. I know I said 2 months ago it couldn't be done, but we're finding out it possibly can be. We might be able to turn it on for strictly fire calls, if you will, not EMS. And we would like to do that when we're out in our yard and the pager's not right on our gym shorts sometimes working. It can be missed, but the guys generally are saying we've only had 1 or 2 people say over the 2 months that they've missed a call because the siren wasn't on. But I guess we get used to it, you know. Let's carry your pager, keep your phone with you. except if it's an auto aid with a different township or the city,
There we go.
There we go.
you don't get paged out. Let me just turn that down real quick. I'm waiting for other people anyway, right now. I'm at the fire hall by myself. But yeah, basically, is there any other questions on it? There'll be a minute before they get here.
No, I just wonder because it's nice that when you hear it, you know how busy you are. And it's good that the township residents realize how really busy you really are. That's
Yeah,
what I'm thinking of.
It's funny, we did get an email, I think yesterday, from a lady in the township asking if the fire hall had moved. She hadn't heard the siren in a couple months. That's if we were open or if we had moved, because she hadn't heard the siren, which I thought sort of funny, but haven't responded to her yet, but I wanted to tell her, no, we haven't moved. We're working on it. It's mixed emotions at the fire hall, but it's working out so far. And I understand if I live by that siren is loud. Ask Lenny if if they're over there at the water department, it's loud. So,
But you want to know people to find out that they're needed. So somebody gets hurt or something, or house burns down, it'd be, a little bit quieter.
yeah.
Okay, anything else for the chief?
No, he does a good job.
All right.
I'm gonna run and then I'll be back though for 9D if I'm needed for
Fine.
anything. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Thank you. All right, let's move to Public Works. Lenny, what have you got?
Hello, everybody. Just a couple quick things. With our wastewater, we've been doing water and wastewater. We've been doing just ongoing routine maintenance, changing oil, making sure things are greased up and stuff like that. So winter time is a really good time to do those kind of things. As far as wastewater, we've been called out to a few routine grinder pumps. We normally get a few of those, probably averaging about one a week here, sometimes more, sometimes less. We did have one place that we did get called out. It was a duplex grinder station, local, one of the restaurants. They had a lot of grease built up in there, and we do inspections, and they do have a grease trap, but somehow the grease got past that. So we got everything cleaned out. We had to have somebody come pump it out, but we did get it pumped out. So we're gonna try to up our grease inspection at a lot of these different places that do have grease traps or where we did have problems. That grease can kind of just really get in there and gum the pumps up. We've had a lot of nuisance alarms at one of our lift stations. We made some adjustments in the SCADA here with the delays and stuff to see if that will help at all. We're hoping that'll kind of cut down on those nuisance alarms. Water, we've also had some alarms on water on the Chapel Ridge tank. The communication's been kind of bouncing in and out of there. We had ordered a part, electronic part on the radio, and we did get it installed yesterday, but unfortunately that did not resolve the problem. So we're gonna go to the next row, the coax going up the pipe there for the antenna. We're gonna replace that. So we're gonna kind of try some of the easy things, some things that we have parts for, and then see if that's gonna solve the problem. We think it's a single problem, it's intermittent. So sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. So it's kind of acting like that the full power is not getting out. But we're gonna try to go ahead and swap some parts out and then see what we get out of that. We did have a good sized water leak on Northwoods Road at the apartments there, right next to the tank. When we went there, it was leaking pretty good, and we know that the location where it was at is pretty nasty underneath there. It's a lot of water, a lot of mud, muck, and the line was really deep. It was about 10 feet deep. So we had to call in some help to come and assist us. We had a local contractor come in. They had some bigger equipment and more of some of those items than we have. But so we did end up getting a fix. We assisted, we made the repair, but we had to have them dig it for us. And it did turn out to be a really big, nasty, wet hole. So luckily they were able to come out and give us a hand. We have still been doing our rotating shifts on our staff, just to make sure, we got continuity in case somebody gets sick. Occasionally, if we have something big like the water leak, we might have to call somebody in, and then once they're done, they go. And even at that, we try to practice safe working practices if we have to be together outside of our normal shift there. Solid waste, North Country Disposal did contact us, and they said that they're going to start taking glass recycles, but they're going to be taking it at their facility up off 492. For residents, they can bring it there on the first Wednesday of the month at no cost. Any other time that they bring it there outside of the first Wednesday, it is 5 cents a pound with a $10 minimum. So we're going to try to get the word out through different means, our social media and some other ways to try to get the public to let them know that we are now doing the glass recycling, but it's going to be at the station up there in Negaunee Township there. So that's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
That'd be a good one to put on the back of the utility bill. If you can catch Brenda for that, the first of the year, first of the month, first of the year.
Yeah.
Who was first? Pete, I think. Sorry.
Lenny, what was the break itself? What happened?
It was just a service line. It's a pretty good sized service line. A little pinhole got wore into the copper. We've had a few of those over the last couple of years, so we don't know if maybe we, a bad batch of copper those last few years was made and made a week, or sometimes there's just rocks and sometimes it's just a coincidence that happens. So it was a, I don't want to say it was a pinhole. It was bigger than pinhole, but it was enough to make quite a mess.
How old was it? How old was it?
I think that line was put in maybe 15 years ago, maybe.
No. I know several years ago, they had problem with copper, even the 1/2-inch copper in houses, they're leaking. So
Yeah, sometimes things just, sometimes the manufacturing, the QA QC might not be up to par.
yeah.
And then, sometimes it just shows up, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I'm glad you got it fixed. Thank you.
Yep.
Linda, you had your hand up?
I do. I have a concern about this glass recycling. I personally felt, and I think people in the township felt, that the glass recycling was going to be curbside. And so I guess my question is, how can we head in that direction? Do we have to wait for the contract to expire? Or can we do something else, Lenny? Maybe you can brainstorm some stuff about, I know Negaunee Township has a bin in their township parking lot. I know the city is picking it up. I know that some of our older people are concerned about having to haul leaves up to the disposal place. So they're going to be very concerned about this whole glass thing. And I think most of us will agree that we do want to encourage recycling.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at first we did not have the ability to even recycle glass. I mean, it was some things that we were talking about, and we discussed that we didn't have the equipment or manpower to actually even do it on site, because we did look at some scenarios where maybe we could have a dumpster or something at the public works facility, and we don't have the equipment and stuff to even do it there. So I guess in the future we would look at scenarios where we could do that, but at this time, the next best option is to at least have some kind of, where they don't have to bring it all the way to the landfill, and when they do bring the rubbish and the leaves and stuff on the first Wednesday of the month, they can do that, bring it up there. But that's not saying that we're not going to look into other options in the future here.
So I guess what I would like to tell the people listening on this meeting and sharing information out in our township is that is not going to be a forever issue. We are going to look forward at something that will be better for our residents.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we're going to look at different options going in the future. I mean, I can't promise you and tell you by this date or that date right now, but it is definitely something we're going to look at and try to get some better solutions coming up in the future. But for now, at least there is an option where they can get rid of the glass at the rubbish drop off.
Yeah. And when does that contract expire with that garbage hauler?
I am not sure. Maybe Manager Kangas can help me on that one.
Or just send me an email and tell me,
Oh, okay.
tell all of us when. I mean, I just think that, I know people are gonna step forward and wonder why they're not.
I can definitely get that information for you and get it off to you.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
The contract was renewed for 5 years it was March of 2019. So we've got a little over 4 years left on that extension.
I do have that on the agenda. I already sent it to Andra to put it on the 1-5 agenda. That we can maybe come up with some options, talk about a few things. We've talked about the leaf disposal and all of those kinds of pickups before. Everybody still wants it at the park. So I think we need to have the discussion again. So unless something changes, it'll be on the next agenda. Let's see if we can come up with something. Pete?
This 5-year contract, when we signed that, they were picking up glass just for a little, dig there. But Lenny, Nagani, I believe that they have a dumpster put there and then they fill it up and then they pick it up after. Is that something that we could do here at the end of our parking lot down there? Have one for one day, put it there, and then people can come and drop it off and then go. Just an idea.
I believe that was one option that was looked at in the not so distant past here, but then we were looking at we know that there's going to be broken glass and we were going to end up with, no matter where we put it, if we put it at the township hall itself or the public works facility, it was going to end up being we would end up with a pretty good sized mess there. So that's what we had some concerns, and especially at the public works facility, we really don't have a lot of room for the public to be coming in and out of that parking lot.
No, I would just suggest right at the end of our parking lot at the office there, they drop it off in the morning, pick it up at night. And
that's something we can discuss.
Yeah.
We can have some internal discussions about it, definitely.
All right. But the people are, like Linda said, I know I get tagged for the leaves. They just expect a little bit better service than that, but they don't realize some of the other problems that we have. And then the disposal riding up that 492 and getting rid of things. So, all right.
We'll hit it next month. We'll have a good discussion and that'll give them time to put some information together too. Okay. Anything else for Lenny?
No, you don't take off on us.
We did
Len?
saw the chat question on the ice rink. That's kind of for the fire department was kind of taking care of that, or JK was gonna work on it. Do we know if we're gonna plan on ice?
Yeah, we're going to make ice as soon as the weather is consistently cold enough to try to freeze water. Until the last 2 nights, we really didn't have cold enough weather. But the goal is usually to have skatable ice by winter break or Christmas break for the kids. If weather permits, that's going to be the goal, but we're running out of time here, so we'll see.
Okay. Randy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, me and the manager, the assessing report was kind of getting, so we decided to put it on quarterly, Len. So
Okay.
unless something becomes, important immediately, you'll see that report quarterly now.
Okay. We're finished with Lenny. I was gonna just say from the assessing side, we did have a Board of Review Zoom meeting today. We had 17 tax adjustments to make, plus 3 veteran PREs, which was the homesteading, principal residence exemptions. So I usually try to ask the assessor what kind of funds we lost with those adjustments, but I didn't get a chance to today. Those are good reasons, especially the veterans exemption. I agree with it wholeheartedly. It just means that we do lose revenue. So I don't know what that number is, but we did have a quick meeting with all of those adjustments today. Next up is the attorney report, and then I'd kind of like to have you, Roger, dig me a little bit into, we didn't put the website discussion on the agenda. So if you could save that till last and update the board. I did write it on my agenda under community linkage to kind of talk about it, but since you had the most recent conversation with Richard and his crew, You could segue right into that and at the end of your report, if you would, please.
Okay, I'd be glad to do that. A lot of the things that I've addressed since my last oral attorney report are agenda items, so I won't go into great depth on those. Reviewed the sheriff contract. We obviously had a trustee vacancy that posed some interesting issues that had to be dealt with on a fairly timely, quick basis. We had a couple new tax tribunal matters again. One thing that was not specifically an action item, we've been waiting for about a year or more for the Michigan Court of Appeals to issue a decision on a case that doesn't directly involve Marquette Township, but does in fact involve payments in lieu of taxes across the entire state. There's a provision in the state statute and also in Marquette Township's ordinance that indicates that if housing units in a low-income development in which we have a PILT arrangement are not rented to low-income persons or families, then the service fee that gets charged should be at the normal tax rate as if it wasn't tax exempt or subject to that payment in lieu of taxes. That was being challenged in a case involving the city of Grand Rapids, and the Court of Appeals has finally issued that opinion, and that opinion was favorable to the position we've been taking all along on that. So that's a bit of an update that I just learned about that in the last week or so. We had a minor fire department personnel question or issue, and been monitoring a couple of ongoing zoning issues with the zoning administrator. And of course, we've got a number of the things that are on the agenda here tonight as well. And we did spend some time looking at the website contract that was brought at the last board meeting. And I had raised some questions in a previous opinion regarding interpretation of paragraph 7 of that proposed contract. And I had in fact suggested a couple of minor revisions to that. Well, the language I was suggested adding was nothing herein shall prohibit the client, which is Marquette Township, from normal and customary usage of content provided by the client or of utilizing ideas, features, or functions readily available from other sources or found in the public domain when future services may be provided by the client or third parties after expiration or termination of the agreement. I guess I felt that paragraph 7 was a little bit ambiguous, vague, and there was a question as far as just what type of repercussions there could be if the business relationship became unsatisfactory and we terminated or didn't renew that contract. Initially, Civic Plus said no, they wouldn't allow an amendment of any kind to paragraph 7. Then late Friday evening, I was here about 6:30 yet, and I received an email saying that they had reconsidered and they would allow a substantially identical amendment. And I emailed back and thanked them for that. And then when I came back in Monday morning, I received another message that they were mistaken and they would not permit that type of amendment to the language of paragraph 7. And there was an explanation, however, that they don't really see that the language in that paragraph interferes with our with our ability to use any information or content that we provide. And when we talk about the public domain, a lot of software and a lot of just intellectual property, things that you can copyright, are subject to copyright. But if that information is so fundamentally basic that anybody should be able to use it, it's considered to be in the public domain. They indicated that they don't perceive that any language in that contract interferes with our right to use things that are in the public domain. So that's a little bit of a, I guess, concession to some degree, because the contract, again, I think is vague and somewhat poorly drafted in that respect. So it's back to you in terms of, they didn't agree to what I had suggested to help clarify that. By the same token, I'm not sure how significant the likelihood is of ever having a problem with that after the contract terminates. So that's the status of it.
So basically, I don't know if any of you have your contract with you, but intellectual property and ownership number 7 says that should we sever our ties with the people who would create this website for us, limits us as to what we can do, what we can kind of like take with us to another website or another developer. And that's what Roger and I were kind of trying to figure out how to define what that is, because we have agendas, we have links, we have pictures. If we chose not to continue with this website, what are we restricted from taking with us? And they couldn't clarify that at all. So I told Roger that, just for a little more history too, for the public, when I submitted Mike Springer's name for Volunteer Citizen of the Year through an online group, I can't remember off the top of my head the name of that organization. It's a very big organization. One of the perks to this award was that the township get a free website for a year. They would design it. They would provide us 5 different templates to choose from, put our pictures in, link us up, get it all set up for free. And then we would have the option at the end of the year to continue with them. And if we did, the contract would be $1,900 for that year to maintain it 24/7. So the question to the board is, do we feel that the contract, I mean, you've all read it before. I don't know if it was something you picked up on, but do we feel that the contract is general enough and that we want this website enough to go through with having them design it and work on it and have it ready for us in possibly 4 or 5 months, something like that, and then continue? I mean, our original thought was to continue it for roughly another 4 years, because we figure about every 5 years, you really need to kind of look at your website. Things change. And Manager Kangas showed us the ROI, the return on investment, how long it would take. It's a break even pretty much. I think he said at year 4, unless some of those numbers changed. So it's a good deal. Do we feel so worried about whether or not we're going to have an issue at the end of that contract whenever it happens? You know, in 5 years, we could choose to give them another 5 years or 3 years or continue with them, do an update with them. Remember too that in 5 years, if we leave it that long, you've got another board that will have to address it. And what if that board decides, you know, they want to do a bunch of different things? I mean, there's so much that we can't really guess or speculate where this is going. I don't want to make it so big of a deal that we pass on it, but I don't want to commit the township if the board feels that this is something that we need to worry about. So I told Roger, I said, we're just going to let the board chew on it tonight. If you want to wait, they'd like to start January 1st or probably the 2nd and get it going. We have kind of a quasi committee set up of 6 people that want to start working on this. I'm not pushing it by any means. I just want to make sure the board feels comfortable with the terms of the agreement. And again, if you read it and it didn't bother you, then we're okay. Roger?
On that same point, in order to help with that a little bit, just as your township attorney, one of my roles or jobs is I'm supposed to raise potential issues. Just like when you go in to have surgery, they're required to tell you that the anesthesia might kill you. And in some instances, the risk of that happening is a lot bigger than others, depending on what your underlying health conditions are. I can say that while I think there's an ambiguity in paragraph 7 of that contract, the chances or the future likelihood of that rearing its ugly head is probably not all that big. Can I give you some type of a guarantee that you're never going to have an issue of that? I cannot. But I don't think that this is an issue that has a terribly large likelihood of posing a problem.
John?
Lynn, if you're looking for a consensus of the board, I think that we should go ahead, and I think that we are in need of a revised
Website?
you bet. Our website is a nightmare to go through. And if it's a nightmare for board members to go through, it's got to be even worse for a citizen. And this is, our goal was to provide a website that citizens could go into, get the details that they are anxious to read, and be able to come to a conclusion before they make a phone call and make a complaint or make a suggestion. I think we should go ahead, and I think my part of the consensus says, let's do it. We need it.
Okay. Pete, I think I saw your hand next.
My question to Roger, at the end of 5 years, and say we don't go along with, we don't renew our contract with them, what, do they leave it as is, or do they take their improvements out of there? I say they should leave them in there because they're paid for it. We paid for it, and they just stop doing business with us. Is that correct, or?
Well, my understanding is you're buying two products. One is creation of a website,
Right.
and then maintenance of that website. So if you don't renew after 2 years or 4 years or 5 years, then you just have nobody. Well, they are no longer maintaining your website.
All right.
As I indicated in one of my discussions way back, I am not a website maintenance or designer person. So I don't even know, I've got a general idea of what goes into maintaining a website, but I don't have the expertise to physically do that. So you would either have to take on those duties to maintain and update, to maintain the website when glitches arise or issues arise on your own, or hire somebody else to do those things for you. But the website itself would be there.
But they're not going to take all the improvements that they made to the website and say cancel them. They can't, take that off of the website.
That's kind of the question.
Got a question?
Okay, go ahead, Ernie.
Going back in time, where I've been. Who owns the coding of the website? That's the question is. Do we, the township, after paying for all the maintenance, everything, does that become our property, the coding? Or does the coding become the property of the company and that? Because that will determine what we can carry forward or what we will lose in that. So that is a question I think we need to answer. Do we buy the coding and pay for it and it becomes our property and they're continually maintaining and updating that coding and that coding becomes our property? I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but that's something to think about. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Linda, you had your hand up.
So I'm wondering, they're selling you a stock web page. They're not designing a Marquette Township web page. They're giving you those 5 choices and you get to pick one. That's my understanding, correct?
Well, they'll make it our website. They'll put our links in and our.
Right, but they're not making a customized website. So have
Correct.
we talked to any of their current customers to see what their satisfaction level is with
I got
their
on-
service?
I got on half a dozen of the websites and I did call one, I think it was Georgia, and asked her if she would get back to me, and she never did. I can make more calls, but I really like the websites that I saw. They're very easy to use. You follow those 5 templates.
Yeah, and there are website developers that are local. And, you know, they design, I mean, you know, this is someone's job. I'm just real uncomfortable with them saying that the cost to maintain it is so much and they offer 24/7 service. I would like to know if the people that they sold their stuff to are getting 24/7 service. I mean, people can tell you anything they want. And yeah, and I do think we need an easy to use, quick website. I agree with that. So, and since I wasn't here in the very beginning, I have a lot to learn about this little piece, but I don't know what it costs. And maybe JK knows what it costs to maintain annually a website. And what does that mean to the person? Maintain so it doesn't crash or update, or are we going to have a township employee that's responsible for all that?
We can kind of have both. They will maintain it, they will update it as new things happen, and we have the ability to do more ourselves. So to Ernie's question, I don't have that answer as far as if we put stuff in, does that mean we can take it out? And you can understand that a company that's giving us something wants to protect their software, whether we pay for it or they give it to us, which they are giving it. They don't want us to say, okay, we got a free website, let's take it and go use it ourselves and have somebody else fix it or change it, or we'll do it. You know, they're just trying to protect themselves, and I get that.
So
I can find out, you know, I can call more of them.
So we had someone locally build a website for another group that I'm part of. They built it and they gave it to us. We paid them to build it and then they were done.
Yes.
And that was it. And now we just maintain it ourselves. And you're right, 5 years from now, we'll need someone to build us a new one. Right, but the maintenance is pretty minimal for what we need. Now, the township might have more maintenance needed or not. I don't know that part.
Well, and remember, kind of to Pete's point, it's not a 5-year contract, it's year to year. The first year is free, they design it, they put it together. We get it, okay? They'll maintain it and help us put it together if we have other things we want to do over the course of this year. Then for 22, we can agree for that year to have them continue to service it. Service, quote unquote, maintaining whatever we have to do, updating. That's $1,900 for that year. In 23, we say, do we want to continue this? Yep. We'll do it another year. It's going to be, I forget, JK would tell me, 5%, 2%, I can't remember. Whatever that is times 1,900, okay, for that next year. Same thing. And the only reason we said 5 years is because we kind of figured about every 5 years, it needs to be looked at again. It could be 4 years. We could decide as a board that we want to take care of it before the new board comes in. So we're not locked into anything for more than a year. The contract just goes year to year.
So it's an annual contract renewal.
Yes. Yes.
It's not automatic. If you miss a beat, you don't like.
Well, I thought I remember it saying that if you don't renew it, it does renew. If you don't say it. I mean, maybe Roger remembers distinctly, but.
Yeah, so
that I just wanted to clarify that a little bit.
yeah,
But
yeah, it's a standard web page with your own pictures and information.
yeah, our agenda.
I think John had a question.
Yeah, JK, go ahead.
What we would be paying for is the template that we choose. And that template contains links to our files and it has our photos included in it. We do not keep the template if we sever services with them. We keep all of our files, all of our property that's linked to it. That's my understanding of it. Now, this is a 1-year agreement with a 60-day termination clause. So if we don't want to continue after the free year, we give them notice 60 days before the end of the next year, and we start over. We've lost nothing other than staff time, basically, and whoever commits to aiding and creating this new website. And I've seen some of these websites they prepared. They are very nice websites. I think we have a nice website. It's just not organized in a way that is beneficial to the user. So, and it took us 5 years to figure that out, right? Every time somebody goes to use it, they struggle finding something. I'm pretty new to it, and I've been able to figure it out, but I've been around a lot of these government websites, so I know kind of how to follow the path, so to speak. I guess what you need to decide is, do you want to take a free opportunity to revamp what we have, knowing that by, say, mid-September, if things aren't going well, you got to start over again. It won't cost you anything to get there other than staff time, like I said, and the volunteers that agree to be on our committee.
Roger?
Just in follow-up to questions that a couple of people raised. First, Treasurer Johnson questioned just what are we purchasing? Paragraph 5 of the contract indicates this agreement is not a sale of Civic CMS content management system and its associated applications and modules. Civic Plus provides a right of use to the client during this period of this agreement. Rights are non-transferable. So to that extent, that, that clarifies that portion of the question. Then it goes on to indicate that the client will own the graphic designs and web content that are incorporated into this, the CMS system. But ownership, they still own it. Then in terms of how have other people perceived the service that Trustee Winslow questioned? If you go on to, there are reviews for this company. And with any type of online review process, they're a mixed bag. There are some that are thrilled. There are some that are not very flattering. There's some of each on there. I did take the time to do that. And then in terms of what is involved in maintenance, again, I hasten to add that I'm not a web maintainer or designer, but there is an Exhibit A to the contract that lists what the annual services are. And to some extent, to me, some of these things have meaning to me and others not so much, as far as just knowing what you get for that. With the 24/7 monitored facility, redundant ISP, redundant power supplies with backup generator, daily backups offsite, 99.9% uptime, intrusion detection and prevention. And there's a page of things that I won't read through all of those, but you have those attached to your contract. And somebody a little bit more conversant in websites, that probably means more to than it does to me.
It does include licenses too, and upgrades, online training documentation, monthly user tutorials, limited user support. I mean, it does list quite a few. Randy?
One of the complaints that appeared, that's coming to mind on some of the reviews, is that the training process wasn't all that great, and that they wanted to charge extra for additional training. However, the reviews were vague enough also that there's two sides to every story. You don't know exactly what the issue was there. But that was a more than one comment on the adequacy of training. But again, there were other people who were just, were thrilled with it. So
The other thing is that this company just does municipal websites. That's all they do. And coming from a background where you're constantly reviewed on your performance, we always do read those in case there's something we have to follow up on. Maybe we're not aware that, in their case, that we're lacking in training. So the reviews are good because they do tell you what you have to focus on. I don't know that they've improved that or not, but a lot of their clients have done custom websites, like Linda was saying. They did it themselves, or they had them custom designed for the municipality. They have huge cities in there, Atlanta, and just bunches of large cities, one in Texas, can't remember. But their maintenance fees are upwards of $7,500 a year. And that's because they're custom programs. Now we can do that. We can go to 906, or I don't know if Siegel's is still available. If we decide we want to just revamp our website, this is just an opportunity if we want to take it or not. Who had their hand up? Pete?
Then, maybe a dumb question, but years ago when I had my grocery store, I had Northern do some work for me at the store about advertising and how to lay out different things and the thing. Is Northern equipped for anything like this? For setting up
I don't know that.
Yeah, Dr. Sharoni, he did a really a good job. His class, they worked on it as a project, and they really did a good job.
They would turn that over to us then. They wouldn't be able to maintain it or anything, like Linda said. Then we'd have to do something. We'd have to have 906 or somebody maintain it for us and update it.
I just a thought that came to my mind.
Yeah,
So.
I don't know that. Randy, you've been waiting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just think we should I think most of us want to see what we get and just move on. I have consensus to move on. And like the manager said, we're not out anything except maybe staff time. If it's at the end, we don't like it, we can move away from it, start over, and it's not going to cost us anything. So
Right.
I think we should move on and at least see what they give us. And if we're happy with it, we can move on.
I've got the contract here. I started to sign it until.
And you still have authorization to sign it because we did make that motion. So,
Right.
And I don't have a problem with moving forward with it. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
JK?
We're not out anything.
I just wanted to mention
Go
one
for
other thing in response to what Linda mentioned, and I agree with her. If there's a way we can do this locally, that's certainly what should be our biggest priority. That being said, the way our current agreement was set up, it was front-loaded cost-wise. We paid somebody to help us develop a WordPress website, and that's the most common, and it's the easiest to maintain. However, I think ours is probably a little bit more complicated than that. And we do have issues from time to time that we have to pay 906 to help us get through. So same thing, we don't really have staff that's fully trained on maintaining a WordPress website. If we have a website that's set up properly where all you have to do is add a new link to a file on our server, I think that's probably what we need. It just needs to be set up properly so the public can find the documents they're looking for easily. And that's really what we seem to be missing right now.
Well, that was my concern, because if they set it up in 5 years and it's all set up, and they say, well, we don't want, to continue on with you, what can they do to that website that they developed and we paid for?
Well, they take their template and they go away. We keep all of our files. That's really what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, and as an updater of our website, I can tell you it is clunky at times. Very clunky to update. And so I'd be more than happy to see what the new process is, because I think right now, myself and Andrea do a lot of the updating and it's very clunky. So I just recommend moving forward and see what we get.
Does that sound fine to everybody or?
Yes,
Good to
that's-
me.
yes.
Okay,
For right now, yes.
thank you for that. I'm glad we had a chance to clarify it and Roger to raise his issue. Good discussion before you sign a contract, you know? Okay, let's look at, nothing for community linkage. That was kind of part of that. I tied that in. Board and committee updates. I'm not ready to print a new list yet because we have board members shifting. And I wanted to try to get pinned down who thinks that they're going to be on what committees before I commit. I do have a couple of people that have wanted to volunteer. I've got a couple applications. We have a library person who wants to take an open spot. So I'm going to put this on the 5th agenda to wrap it up. But let's talk internally about us because we do have Pete that stayed. We do have Linda being new. Our terms actually came up to the end of November. So if we want to shift a little bit, we can do that. For right now, this is what I know. And then if somebody wants to say, yes, I want to do this or no, I don't, just let me know. Linda has volunteered to be the planning liaison. Pete has asked to stay back on the roads. John is kind of, I don't know if you want to leave the ZBA or maybe just try something in addition. And actually, I think those are the only ones that I actually know. So I'm looking for some input.
Lynn,
Yes, sir, Pete.
at the rec meeting tonight, I think there's 2 people that were very interested in joining.
Yeah,
For the rec meeting.
Let's
So-
just figure out the board first because
Okay.
we're the anchors and then I've got a chance to call those folks. I've got a couple people. Actually, Mike had somebody that he'd given me a name and then they changed their mind. So I kind of wanted to at least establish us first.
All right,
Who's doing what? So am I correct that you want to stay on the roads?
yes.
Is that right? Okay. Now you've been on a lot of the other committees too. Do you wanna, I'll pick on you because you had your hand up. You on the
Event.
yeah, you're on personnel. And John said if you were not gonna do any of those, that he might jump in onto that one or the negotiating committee. You said you just kind of want to grow.
Get someone else on them 2 committees then.
Okay, do you just want to stay on roads
Events,
and events?
yes.
Okay. Okay, roads and events. All right. Then if we'll have planning done. Recreation, we need a liaison. John?
I'm just curious, is, when you say planning is done, have we officially followed your,
Appointment process? No,
okay,
no,
that's,
not at all.
are you ready to make an appointment to from the board?
No, I kind of want to know where everybody fits and who's left and what
Okay,
spots are open. I'm just trying to get kind of a consensus. If somebody else wants to do planning, that's fine. Linda just kind of volunteered. If somebody else
well, I
wants,
think that's a good move.
okay. So when I'm saying it's done, I'm sorry, that's not a good choice of words. I'm just trying to organize my lists. So we have someone for planning, we have somebody for roads. I need somebody for the recreation committee. Because I lost Mike and Dave. Dave was our liaison, the board rep. And we don't have to decide this tonight if you guys want to think about it, but I'd like to put it together for the next meeting. So I need somebody for recreation. DDA is okay, Board of Review. ZBA, John, did you want to stay on the ZBA? Is that correct?
Yes,
Doesn't meet much, so that's good. Okay. So that one's kind of done for now. Election.
Hey,
Right.
hey, with the election committee, Lynn, does the trustees, Marks and Everson want to stay on the election committee?
Yes,
Yes.
I
Okay,
do.
that's fine. We'll have that for next meeting then.
Okay, because we've decided, or we've found out too, that we need to oath everybody. We need-
Reappoint, yeah, and then give them oaths, yes.
And
That's why I'm trying to figure out where we are first, so we can set up the paperwork. So personnel, then Pete wants to come off. John, do you have an interest in that, or does somebody else want to get on personnel? We only meet like a couple times.
committee, I'm willing to, if Pete doesn't want to have that, I'm willing to sit there.
Okay, anybody else have an interest?
I will stay on it if need be. If I'm
Yeah.
on it.
Okay, you and Dan are on right now, and Pete was the one that came off. So put John on there then, if that's okay. We'll leave
That's on
that.
the personnel committee, Lynn, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Then safety committee. I don't know if you've even met in a few years, but Pete was on that too.
I'd like to stay on that one.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Never have one.
safety. Okay. Then labor negotiating, that was me and the manager and Pete.
I'm willing to serve on that.
Anybody else have an interest? Okay. John. Okay. Personnel. John. Okay. Business Association bills to the treasurer.
Yes.
Corridor committee, that's John and me. Lenny and John are the wastewater. Speed limit, we haven't had to do anything with, that's Ernie.
Well, the state took it away from us. Nah.
Yeah. Heritage Trail, we really need to find an alternate for the Iron Ore Heritage Trail Rec Authority.
We received an application for that today, Lynn.
You did?
Yep.
Good.
Awesome, okay. If you want to put that on my desk, it looks like I have to come in and sign some other stuff anyway, then I can.
In your mailbox.
Great, okay, thank you. I'm gonna put application. Beautification. Linda, you were working on that? Am I wrong?
No, we haven't had a beautification committee in a really long time.
It doesn't have anybody's name on here.
Maybe Mary Beals and I'll do our beautification little pots and we'll be good.
I won't commit anybody then. Okay, events. So Pete wants to stay on events. Got that. And we tried to get a hold of Barb. I'm not sure about that, but Todd said he'd stay on and the manager's on. And if anybody else wants to join events, absolutely, any of the public. So we do have an application then for the advisory council and the library. And in my interview with him, I'm definitely going to stress that we would like information from them on a timely basis. We've asked for that numerous times and have not seen anybody give us any updates. So maybe that'll help us. And that's really about it. So recreation, then I still need a board rep. So if you guys want to think about it and let somebody, Dan? You wanna
Yeah, go
volunteer?
ahead. Put it down.
Okay.
What generally, how involved is it? I'm just trying to see if I got, and make sure I have enough time.
Yeah, Pete, why don't you fill him in?
You got five days a week.
Okay? Uh-huh.
It's what it is. It's just to realize what the township is, wants to do, what we can do in the township, and you work on committees and just throw
Okay.
away. Right now, we're throwing around the pickleball things. Okay, pros and cons on that. You know,
Okay.
so they'll be coming up shortly to the board. First of all, it's going to go to Ryan. He's going to work on it, and so. But it's stuff like that. What's good for recreation? We like to. I always wanted to get a sledding thing off of the Wellwood Road out there. You know, stuff like that. recreation, because we don't have the lake. The city got the lake, we can't do nothing. We got a little piece of it, but there's not much we can do. So how can we get the people doing things in the township that's gonna benefit the businesses in the township? And that's what, I want a pickleball tournament that I bring people in. I mean, they travel to Traverse City and all over, you know. Some areas they got, 20 courts, so it's a big, fastest moving thing. So how can we capitalize on that for the township businesses? So that's what I'm thinking about.
And what nights do they meet?
Right before this meeting, an hour before this meeting,
Okay,
once a month.
okay,
The roads have the meeting, the first meeting, the board meeting of the month, and the recreation has the second meeting of the month.
okay. That won't conflict with my fire department meetings or my other commitments either. Good. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, put you down, Dan. And I'll catch JK later. I'll check with him, Mike, don't worry. Okay, that covers everybody that's open. So what I'll do is for the next meeting, I'll have the the committee list typed up. I'll have contacted those folks who want to participate somehow. And I'll have that all, how I usually give you a manual that's got the terms and who's open and who's taking what. So I'll have that all put together for you. Okay. And if anybody wants to change anything, let me know. If something comes up. Randy?
I'd just say right now, if Linda wants to do the planning, because they do have a vacancy with no one being appointed, I'd like to appoint Linda Winslow to the Planning Commission immediately.
Support.
And then at least they'll be back to a full board then.
True. Yeah, because the next meeting, you're right.
Your dad would be proud, Linda.
Oh.
Any comments, suggestions?
She's not just going to the board, she'd be going there as a township board representative.
Right.
Right.
It's a little different than an actual commissioner, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my time on the planning. Okay, then let's do a roll call, Randy.
Okay, so the motion is to appoint trustee Winslow to the Planning Commission as the board rep. And myself is yes. Trustee Marks,
Yes,
trustee Winslow.
I think I abstain, right?
No, you can vote yes on it.
Oh, yes, then.
Vote yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, trustee Everson,
Yes.
trustee LaRue,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes,
and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Congratulations, Linda. I'll give you the oath shortly. We'll make arrangements and I'll get you sworn in.
Okay, that'll be good. I have some computer questions, so.
Okay.
Can you just do it when we end this meeting? Leave your Zoom open?
can.
Yeah, I could do that, but I do have to have her sign the oath sheet, so
Okay.
she might as well just come in to do it.
Okay,
That doesn't preclude her though to go to the meetings and do anything because the oath, as Roger explained to me, the oath is okay. What did you say? It's nice to have, but not necessarily law binding for the Planning Commission. Correct?
Well,
Here we go.
we'll talk later.
Okay.
Just do
Well,
the oath.
yeah, the oath's fine. We'll do that.
Okay. Good. All right. This agenda also includes draft committee reports from the officers' meetings. November 9th and the business meeting minutes. That must be fire department. Somebody didn't put fire department on there. All right. Let's consider the approval of the 2021 township meeting schedule. I didn't see any conflicts there or wrong dates or anything, unless somebody else picked up something.
It all looked good to me.
Yep.
I'll make a motion.
I know it went to the Planning Commission, I think at their last meeting to look at, and I don't think they had any, I didn't have any issues with that. I did change because we do not have an election now this next year, so that one meeting in November is changed back to Tuesday.
Okay,
What are you talking about now, Randy?
Oh, there was a meeting in November that had to be, that I moved to Wednesday, but it's back to Tuesday now.
Oh, okay, so it's second and 60, okay.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the calendar for the 2021 meeting date.
meeting schedule.
What, John?
The meeting schedule.
Yep.
That's
That
what I
is-
said.
I'll second it.
okay, Pete, thanks. Comments? Okay, roll call?
Okay, so this is the motion to approve the 2021 township meeting schedule, which includes the board, planning, recreation, roads, and the DEA. So trustee Everson,
Yes,
trustee LaRue,
Yes,
trustee Marks,
Yes,
trustee Winslow,
Yes,
treasurer Johnson,
Yes,
clerk Rattari is yes, and supervisor Durant.
Yes,
Motion carries. I'll have that posted shortly on the door, and I'll have something on the website.
all right, good, thank you. Discuss request of Home Builders Association use of Westwood Mall. I know what this is about, but who wants to take it? Roger, Jason? John? Don't everybody fight at once?
I'll start by just saying, yeah, we've entertained or we've received an application for a temporary use permit at the Westwood Mall for April 23rd to the 25th to conduct what's commonly referred to as the UP Builders Show inside and outside of the Westwood Mall. I have not responded to that application yet due to the fact that previously, due to the pandemic, you did have a moratorium in place. That moratorium has expired. And for the general health, safety, and welfare of our residents, knowing that it's a little bit further out than the other one that was proposed, I wanted to have your input and have you, I guess, disclose to me whether it was your intention to extend the moratorium to abide by the DHHS rules, because obviously the executive orders were struck down by the state Supreme Court. And then Roger can fill in any gaps that may be out there.
Go ahead, Roger.
Well, that pretty much summarizes it. And keeping in mind, however, that you certainly have the ability to enact another moratorium, and there are other jurisdictions that are doing similar things, I believe. We're right now right on the cusp of having a new executive order, probably from the Department of Health and Human Services, and some developments on or about December 20. So at this point, I'm just wondering whether it might warrant a little bit additional time to see what direction we're headed in by then. And keeping in mind that this board does not decide whether to grant or deny temporary use permits. That rests strictly with the zoning administrator under the zoning ordinance, but it is this board's prerogative to determine that within the health, safety, and welfare of the township that it wants to enact a moratorium on those. Keeping in mind that the circumstances are now quite a bit different than they were back in July when you issued your last moratorium on those. At that point, the numbers were different, of course, but even more importantly, there were some real issues on interpretation on whether the parking lot of the mall constituted, what type of a venue that was. All of those confusing classifications have been eliminated because of the invalidation of those executive orders. So you don't have quite as many of those issues. Long story short, I think I would recommend putting this off until at least the January 5 meeting to evaluate this a little bit further. And by then you'll have the benefit of knowing what happens on December 20.
I move to follow the advice of the township attorney.
I'll support that. So we'll put it on the 5th of the agenda for the 5th of January.
Okay. I got it.
If I could just add,
Sure.
you know, obviously having that event in Marquette Township would be extraordinary for all of the other businesses in the community. It's not our intention by any means to disparage or, you know, not want that activity in our community, especially with a, you know, the mall, which is, you know, struggling a little bit, let's be honest. So it's just a matter of the safety factor, and I appreciate the board taking a deeper look at this prior to making a decision on the permit application.
That sounds good.
Can I make a comment? I think we need to relay that to the group that wants to rent the mall and the mall itself and that, so.
I have, Ernie. Thank you so much.
Pete?
I think if you want to do it, I think we sort of proved it with the Christmas event. You can do it safely. I think that went over pretty good. It was very, I feel safety was a high priority. And I think if you want to do it, you just have to sit. And by now, there's a lot of other things with the virus that, with, you know, all the shots going to be done for them. And I think we might have a lot of changes in the next 3 months. So I wouldn't shoot it down yet. I'd be in favor of it myself.
Yeah, that's what Roger and I had a lengthy conversation about that today, and I said the same thing. This does fall to the mall, you know, they bring the Salvation Army in to distribute gifts. They had the library in there for a while. This is their building, you know, they don't ask us if they can rent it to
Right.
company XYZ. But I wasn't aware that there's a new EO coming. So yeah, we'd probably better wait at least till the next meeting.
But it's not a township event either. With the Christmas thing was a township event.
Right. It's a little bit different. Okay, I'll add it to the next agenda.
We got to vote on that yet.
Okay.
So Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Clerk Katari is yes, and Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
Yes.
Trustee Winslow,
Yes,
Trustee Marks,
Yes,
and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be added to the next agenda on the 5th to discuss.
Okay. Consider revised, excuse me, fiscal year 2021 budget resolution and general appropriations act. JK, you put this back on. Pardon me.
Yeah, so we thought we brought you a perfect document. I was wrong. And you might remember at the last meeting, I mentioned we went back and forth a little bit on the fire department revenues. And specifically, what had happened is we had a little bit of a miscommunication due to the partial staff working from home, verifying numbers without having a full set of tools to verify properly. So what happened is we calculated the revenue based on total taxable value, but you have to take the personal property tax out of there. So the revenue ended up being less than what we were working on. We corrected the budget, but that number didn't carry over into the Appropriations Act. So we need to modify that a little bit. There's basically a couple lines in the Appropriations Act specific to the fire fund that need to be corrected.
Hey, John.
I move to approve the revised fiscal year 2021 budget resolution and general appropriations act as presented.
I'll
I
support.
support that.
I beat you, Linda.
Okay, you can have it.
Any other comments?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Sean, do we have to advertise that in the paper?
I think that would actually need legal interpretation or the clerk. We did advertise, we did have a public hearing. The budget that was adopted is what is reflected in this revised Appropriations Act. I think everything is above board. If we had just corrected this without bringing it back to you to adopt as revised, that would probably be the issue, but that's my opinion as a non-legal voice.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're trying to be as transparent as possible by bringing it back to you.
Understand. Understand.
What do you think, Roger?
My inclination is we do not, but let me double check the wording of the statute. I will look at that first thing in the morning.
Okay, better safe than sorry.
If we do, we do. We have time.
And it does not impact the budget. It's only the revenues in particular in the fire department section of the Appropriations Act.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Randy.
So the motion is to approve the revised fiscal 2021 budget resolution and general appropriations act. And the motion maker is trustee Marks.
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee Winslow,
Yes,
trustee LaRue,
Yes.
trustee Everson,
Yes,
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you for that. Dan, did you just time this just right, or was that a fluke?
Yeah, timing is everything, they say.
Consider return of $7,000 to the state of Michigan CARES Act money. Chief.
Yeah, briefly, if you remember, I believe it was back in October, middle of October, at your second meeting, you approved us for that hazard pay, not knowing if we were going to receive the $28,000, which we had applied for. And we had expensed, you had approved to pay the fire department $21,000 from from that other grant from the reimbursement. So we weren't going to go over budget, but then we had to pay that money by October 31st. October 31st at 6 p.m. received an email saying that we were approved for the 28, but we had already cut the checks for 21,000. So now we need to return the $7,000, if that makes sense.
Hey, John?
I move to approve the recommendation of the return of $7,000 to the state of Michigan CARES Act money fund with regret.
yeah. I'll
Was that-
second.
Dan? Okay. All right, any comments? Anything else,
I hate-
Dan?
I sure hate giving money back to the state for anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for approving it though to begin with, not knowing if we were going to receive it. So that was sort of, we were in good shape, but not knowing, so I appreciate, like I said, you approving it beforehand. Timing didn't work out for us that day.
Didn't the packet say, or did I read it wrong though, Dan, that not everybody did get a check, or did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, of the firefighters,
Yeah,
everybody did. Not everybody got the same amount. Manager and I went over, and the manager was a little more generous than I. And we worked it out, and I think it was very fair and equitable, and I think it worked out to the best. Everybody was obviously very happy with it. A few members, there was a couple on leave and we couldn't. They had to have worked at that time. So now those people were
That's what I figured.
unfortunately left out.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I
Go
just
ahead.
want to add that if we went with Dan's plan, we would be giving more money back.
Yes. Correct.
Live and learn.
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead, Randy.
Okay, so the motion is to give $7,000 back to the state of Michigan CARES Act money, and that motion maker is trustee Marks,
Yes.
trustee Everson,
Yes.
trustee Winslow,
Yes.
trustee LaRue,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
clerk retires, yes, and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thanks for that. Consider Marquette County interlocal agreement for county designated assessor. This is a big confusing thing for a lot of people. Manager and I, as you know, meet with a bunch of the local officials every Thursday morning. We did get an explanation from the county administrator at our last meeting. And we did get some of an update from our own assessor. The state is requiring kind of a backup from the assessing side of to help with some of the communities that are not paying attention and paying their bills and doing the right assessing. You might remember that a few years ago, the AMR, you've heard Dulcie talk about that, was implemented, and that's just a cross check. I don't want to say just, but a check and balance against all of the reporting that needs to be done from the assessing departments in each community. So as an addition to that, the state would like to have each county have an overseeing assessor to make sure that if for some reason Marquette Township or Ishpeming City or Chocolate Township starts defaulting on their responsibilities from the assessing, that someone can step in and help them out and maybe take over. You know, I mean, that's a whole big chain of what can happen, but the county administrator needs to have a majority of the 23 municipalities in the county agree to an assessor that can oversee everything. And I did ask our assessor if she was putting her name in the box because she wanted the job. And she said, no, that's not something she wanted to do. But the county has made a recommendation and they're asking for us to approve it. You've got the information in your packet. JK, is that kind of a good summary if you wanted to add something?
Yeah, the only other thing I would add is they've actually named the equalization director, Jackie Likens, as the county designated assessor. So the other thing is agreeing to this commits you to nothing more than supporting who they have designated. It doesn't mean that if our very qualified professional staff fails an AMAR, that we have to use Jackie Likens under this agreement. We have several options we can pursue. I don't think we have to worry about any of them because we have probably the most qualified professional staff in assessing in the county, aside from maybe Jackie Likens' own department and maybe even Topsers, but I'm not going to get into a battle on that one. I just speak very highly because we have very qualified staff here, and I don't think it will ever apply to Marquette Township. So it's more a matter of if you agree or disagree with the county designating the equalization director as that designated assessor.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. This does not commit us. They just need to have agreement. Linda?
So is this a 1-year term, a 5-year term, a forever term? Is it always the equalization director or is it that person? Or don't we know? Or don't we care? Maybe we don't care, right? So I could just read the law and see what it says then, because, yeah, yeah, because I can't imagine this person's gonna work for a whole lot longer, but maybe she is.
Why don't we find out for you on Thursday? Because we'll be getting,
Okay, just kind of ask them. Yeah, I'm curious as to how long the appointment is for.
yeah, great question. Questions. Pete?
I'm glad to see it go this way because, I think it was a couple of years ago in Escanaba when they were discussing this whole ordeal. They're really pushing for a assessor to be from downstate. And I know Darcy was very upset over that and they get some good arguments. So I'm glad it comes down to this. And Jackie's, I think you're very happy. She's very talented and educated. She'll work very good with Dulcie, and I think they both do. So I'm happy that the turnout is the way it is right now.
Okay. JK?
The terms of this agreement is for a period of 10 years. Now, if the equalization director retires prior to the end of this agreement, then the agreement would have to be modified. So we would be going through this process again with a new named designated assessor, I would assume.
Okay. Thank you.
No. Yeah, we had all that information in the packet. Randy?
I'll make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement as presented and authorize the supervisor to sign the document.
Yeah, support.
All right, we've got motion and support. Any other comments? Okay, go ahead, Randy.
The motion is to approve the interlocal agreement as presented and authorize the supervisor to sign the document in behalf of Marquette Township. So the clerk retiree is yes. Trustee Marks,
Yes,
trustee Winslow,
Yes.
trustee LaRue,
Yes.
trustee Everson,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
and supervisor Durant.
Yes,
Motion carries 7-0.
good, thank you. Consider proposed zoning text amendments to allow for and regulate adult use recreational and medical marijuana facilities. First reading. Do we want the planning side of this first, maybe, or the legal side?
I can start.
Okay, go ahead, Jace.
So, this has been a long and arduous process, working on this proposal for you. If you remember, back a while ago, the board tasked the planning commission come up with language that could be considered for allowing adult use recreational and medical marijuana facilities in Marquette Township. As such, what you have in front of you tonight, and per the memo and the packet of information that was received, details two separate, I guess, veins of approach. One is a zoning text amendment that details the land uses and where they would be allowed in the township per the Planning Commission's recommendations. And then two is a board ordinance which further details the finer points of how far it can be, a facility could be from a school, let's say, or hours of operation or odor control, some of the more finer points of the proposal. I will say that I'd like to thank the Planning Commission, even members of the KBIC tribe who obviously are pining for us to approve this, not that it should matter to the board, but they did provide input on this. We gleaned literally probably a dozen different ordinances that have been both local and regional in the state to come up with what we have. And while others have, I guess, they've approved ordinances that they've fostered and drafted, ours took a little bit longer, but being the entertainment and commercial epicenter of the UP, which we feel that we are, we wanted to make sure that we dotted all of our I's and crossed our T's. And from the zoning department side, or from the zoning ordinance side, we made adjustments to Article 2, which is the definitions article, and we added all of the state definitions that are also found in the board ordinance, so they cross-reference each other so that there was no hiccup there. And then in Article 15, that is the land use nomograph. That is the chart that allows or shows where certain land uses are permitted within the township. And, you know, we were diligent with that. You know, we definitely thought that the commercial zoning district and in some parts the development district, which is kind of a buffer between the general business and the rural or the urban residential and rural residential districts, could potentially house some of those. You will find that they are all special use permits. They are not proposed to be permitted by right. They would all require a public hearing and have a duly called public hearing with neighbor notifications as required by state law, as well as a notice put in the newspaper. And that leads us to the board ordinance, and Roger and I agreed to kind of split our speech or presentation to you tonight based on those two differences. So the zoning ordinance amendments are fairly simple in that they designate what land uses there are, they define them, and then they propose to locate them in certain districts. So again, the general business district was certainly one of them. The industrial or the segregated business district that we have in the township, which is relatively small in scope, but there is property available in that zoning district, we believe. And we've thought that those two zoning districts would be most adequate for most of the uses. There are some that are found in the development district. And then with that, I would let Roger detail the finer points of the proposed board ordinance, which would also be required in order for all of this to work.
Jason is basically correct on everything except the number of ordinances that were looked at for ideas, for thoughts and comparisons. There were a lot more than a dozen that were looked at. And there are a wide variety of ordinances. The Planning Commission just put in an incredible amount of hours, time, and effort, as did staff, on trying to come up with a proposal to bring to the board that is workable and protects the interests of not just the applicants, but also of the neighboring properties and the community at large. There are a lot of moving parts in all of this to make this really a compatible type of new ordinance, or a couple of ordinances. And it's a learning experience to some extent because it just hasn't been tried and tested everywhere yet. A couple of preliminary comments. I'd note that some communities have separated the ordinances and adopted actually two different ordinances for medical marijuana and for adult use or recreational marijuana. The Planning Commission considered that but rejected that because it makes it much more cumbersome for a developer who's coming into the township to have to navigate two different ordinances. Now, to some extent, we still have to do that. All the provisions are contained in one ordinance, with the exception of the nomographs that are in, and some of the definitions that are in the zoning ordinance, but both recreational adult use marijuana establishments and medical marijuana facilities are covered in one rather than two ordinances. Now, it's kind of a lengthy read, but I would strongly encourage the board to take the time to go through this very carefully and look at all of the provisions. I'm going to hit some of the most important provisions, however. And they're all of the sections are important, but among those near the top of the list are section 4, which you'll find at page 5 of at least the way it printed off of my computer. And that's the chart that shows the total number of each type of business that is allowed in the township. So that's, for example, growers. There are 3 classes of growers for medical marijuana, and it's broken down on just how many plants they can grow. And then there's for recreational or adult use marijuana, there's a 4th category of excess growers. The Planning Commission is recommending in this version at least a total number of 2 growers, irrespective of categories. And now let me clarify another thing. The state legislature adopted the medical marijuana legislation completely separately from the adult use recreational marijuana legislation. And that was mandatory because just of the order that public voting took place and so forth. But they didn't even use the same definitions. A Class A grower, for example, for medical marijuana, has a different number of plants than a Class A grower for recreational adult use marijuana. Those criteria are broken down and spelled out completely for both categories. But the chart on page 5 is a summary of how many of each type of business can be placed in Marquette Township. So that's a fairly critical thing for you to look at. You might notice that at the bottom of the chart on page 5, there are 2 categories with zeros after them. The first is a temporary marijuana event. The second is a designated consumption establishment. I won't go into reciting all of the deliberation and the analysis that went into that decision, but the recommendation at this point is those are likely,
And I have to shut this thing off.
those are likely to be the most troublesome areas to regulate moving forward. And there's the least amount of experience in other areas, other states. Most states do not allow designated consumption establishments as a category of licensing. What that is essentially a marijuana cafe or bar where you can go in and depending on the nature of it, you can go in and bring your own product, or you can, suffice it to say, there are a lot of unanswered questions, and it also poses some issues on enforcement because the bulk of purchased marijuana will be used at home or in somebody else's residence or on private property, whereas a designated consumption establishment would be a public locale where people are driving to and driving from. And there's just very limited guidance on what type of regulations, how that will be regulated. So the planning commission is recommending they can always come back and amend this. You can always come back and amend this later and allow designated consumption establishments, but until further state guidance and experience from other communities evolves, they're recommending a 0 on that. And the same recommendation for temporary marijuana events. The Planning Commission is recommending 0 licenses for temporary marijuana events for now. That's not to say that that wouldn't be reconsidered at a future point, but that is the current recommendation. One of the other things that's very important in this part of the ordinance is found in section 5B on page 6. And that's the chart that Jason alluded to that shows in what districts can each type of business be put. And they're grouped into similar classifications. For example, you'll see at the top of that chart, there's medical marijuana growers, class A, B, or C, and then adult use recreational marijuana growers, class A, B, or C. And again, those have to be separated out, because even if a developer wishes to, for example, have a growing facility for both medical marijuana and adult use recreational marijuana, separate licenses, and this is under state law, separate licenses must be obtained even if they are co-located on the same property at the same address. There are two separate licenses that have to be issued by the state. So this ordinance tracks that and also requires two separate township ordinances. But the similar categories, for just by means of example, there are many business owners who are interested in having both a medical marijuana provider, provisioning center, that's the term I was groping for, and an adult use marijuana retailer establishment at the same location. They are permitted to do that, but it's not one license, it's two licenses. Same thing in this ordinance. So there would be two applications, both to the state of Michigan in that hypothetical example, and two applications to the township of Marquette as well. But again, those are the districts where they're permitted. Another important one is at section 11C, and that's the one that indicates that how close to public schools an establishment or facility can be. And that's another difference between the medical marijuana and the recreational adult use marijuana, is even the name of the business terminology in the statute is different. So that's why you'll see both interspersed throughout this ordinance, is because a medical marijuana business is referred to as a facility by the state legislature, and an adult use recreational marijuana business is referred to as an establishment. So we've tried to track as closely as possible. That's not just looseness on the part of your planning commission in using different terminology. In fact, it's a tightness in the sense of trying to follow the exact terminology that the state is utilizing in order to avoid ambiguities. But in any event, section 11C, the state law indicates that a marijuana business essentially can't be closer to a public school than 1,000 feet unless the local ordinance reduces that footage. Here, the Planning Commission debated and deliberated, and is in the version you have before you has put a 500-foot distance rather than a 1,000-foot distance. That is something that's fair game for the township board to modify or change if they wish. The Planning Commission also recommended that everything be a special use. I think the board will appreciate the importance of that, because this is a new business, type of business that we haven't had a lot of experience with, that other communities have not had a lot of experience with. So a special use requires the Planning Commission to review each and every application for a permit and can impose conditions as may be necessitated by that particular site and may be necessitated by the conditions within the neighborhood of where this is being proposed. This is in contrast to any of these businesses being permitted as a use of right, where they can just come in, make the application, and they have the right to locate there without additional analysis and potential conditions. So that's a safeguard for the community at large and neighboring properties, and falls under the health, safety, and welfare of the township, essentially. There's also a very detailed process which on how the application has to be made. And that is a multi-step analysis. And I'm not going to go through all of that with you tonight, but take the time to read that, because that was an area where the Planning Commission spent a lot of time. And there are really, even in the legislative process, some chicken and egg questions where a process has to be developed, but there's room for interpretation on what makes sense, the most sense to happen first. There is a procedure under state law that allows a marijuana business to put in an application for pre-qualification, to just establish that certain criteria at the state level are capable of being met by that particular applicant. Our ordinance does not mandate, but strongly encourages an applicant to get that pre-qualification status from the state, because that will move the process along, will expedite the process to some degree for applications. Because it's not going to be something that gets applied for on Monday and the permit gets granted by either the state or the township on Thursday or Friday. There's a multi-step procedure that's going to take some time here. Then, of course, the next step is filling out the application, and there's a judgment call on where the special use permit application falls. But before an application for a special use permit can be made, there has to be essentially a site plan and a site chosen. It can't be just a theoretical, I want to sell, or I want to grow, or I want to process marijuana in the township. It has to be site specific, because otherwise you won't have you can't grant or even consider a special use permit, and also cannot really consider a license. Again, that process has multiple steps to it, and a lot of time was spent on that. That does not mean that anything in this proposed ordinance can't be changed or completely tossed out. That's up to the township board to analyze. This is only a recommendation from the Planning Commission, but I would add that, again, it was not a hastily put together recommendation by the Planning Commission. A lot of time, hours, and effort on their part to try to put together the best version that they could, that they thought would possibly be acceptable to the township board. With the full realization, we've never dealt with something like this before, and the township board might have their own thoughts and recommendations. And a second or a fourth set of eyes are always an excellent thing to have in order to just question and raise issues, potential issues that might come up that nobody has ever even thought of. So unless there are specific questions, those are my comments on the standalone ordinance. The zoning ordinance portion of it that Jason discussed is really, while it's a mandatory thing if you're going to adopt this ordinance or some version of it, they're pretty straightforward. The definitions are all taken pretty much directly from from state legislation, the statutes, and there are about 4 different statutes that come into play. And also there are certain regulations that have been adopted, and just about the time when the Planning Commission was at least getting close to having a version to send you, the emergency regulations expired, and the state developed some all brand new ones. So the new ones, the newest versions are incorporated in those definitions.
Wow, easy for you to say.
Yeah, wow.
Randy?
Okay, so we lost Treasurer Johnson at 8:14, but we still have a quorum, so we'll move on. I don't have a problem with this. This is a first reading, so we can move it along. We got actually 3 weeks before our next meeting, so everyone can get together and get any concerns or questions to either the planner, zoning administrator, or our attorney in the next 3 weeks to move this along, because I'd like to catch up with the times of our local area here. And so I would move to make a motion to approve the first reading of the proposed text amendments for allow for and regulate adult use, recreational, and medical marijuana facilities.
So moved.
Actually, I did, but you're a second, Pete.
Second, I meant.
All right, we have a motion and second for the first reading. I have a couple of questions. I'm trying to envision 500 feet so that some people could have a perspective. If a mile is 5,200 feet, this could be like a half-
Typical platted block is 600 feet long.
How much frontage do you have in a motel then?
I don't even know. It's 2 acres.
Oh,
I don't
We could
even-
give you some proximity maps
yeah.
if desired. I mean, we could identify, well, it'd be a little bit arduous, but I know the city did that as well, where they actually took those specific land uses that would be a point of determining a
Radius.
a proximity or radius from, and they identified those and then drew those radiuses on their maps so that they, if you had a church or if you had the school, you could definitely tell, but I believe that we're probably in pretty good shape because most of our institutional type of facilities are located within Trowbridge. And so I would find it hard to believe that any of these definitions or land use types could locate within section 16, period. I don't believe that that's possible. Plus, all of that is zoned urban residential, and that land use, that zoning district is not even open for these types of land uses, period.
Though you do have another public school on Wright Street. You've got North.
Which is in the DD district, yes, correct.
Yeah, and that's, there's that buffer in between residential and commercial. So I was just trying to give the public a perception, because you said that the original recommendation was 1,000 feet and you could go down, and so you went to 500. So the Trowbridge lots are typically 60 feet. I was trying to give people a perspective. What's 500 feet?
Yeah, typically a city block or a platted block is about 600 feet in length. But yeah, that's a good point. I think we followed what a lot of the other communities have done as far as, whenever we do zoning text amendments that have those types of restrictions, we always, in cases that we can, try to be consistent with some of our surrounding municipalities as well.
Well, because in most cases, when we notify somebody in the planning side, it's 300 feet, around whatever the issue is of, building a garage or changing setbacks or whatever. So yeah, I was just trying to give a perspective somehow so folks would know. The second one, when we were first approached by the tribe to consider this, I thought I remembered them saying they were going to do the medical side and then probably go to the recreational use side. And then they wanted to do some growing up in Negaunee Township or Negaunee.
Chris is on the line or on the.
Yeah, how is that? Is this changed now? Or, not that this is for them, because this came as part of the election and everything. I get that, but they were the ones that you know, more or less introduced us to the whole concept and what they were going to do and what they were proposing. I'm just wondering what's different of that, if anything, that we know of, or does that make a difference, or just bringing it up for the question?
Excuse me. I don't believe it makes a difference. I mean, our ordinance is not geared around what the KBIC wants to accomplish in Marquette Township. Our ordinance is geared towards the protection and welfare of our community. The ability to do medical and adult use recreational sales, I think, kind of coincides with the typical business model that is being developed in the state. You know, the cost, or I don't know how to say it, the economy of scale, if you will, lends itself to somebody who wants to develop and have both abilities to do medical and adult use, if you will. And, you know, KBIC is not the only entity interested in developing these types of facilities in Marquette Township. I can for sure tell you that. We have had several different inquiries in the last several weeks since we are starting to get towards the, you know, what we would consider to be the end of this process. We've had multiple inquiries.
I have too. I've probably gotten half a dozen emails and phone calls in the last 6 months, as it were. And I just said, you know, explained to them where we were in the process and that we hadn't made any decisions.
Yeah, without going into, you know, too much detail, we've all known about this for a long time. This is a voter approved mandate, and I think it was suggested by staff or whoever at the time that if this is a voter approved measure, then we should look at this from an official standpoint and see if there's something that we can do to accommodate what, you know, a majority of the voters in the state wanted, especially in our community. I think that this is a good, and maybe Roger wouldn't go on about it, but I think this is a good entry level proposal for the community. As with anything, if it gets unbalanced in a certain way, we can certainly look at modifying the ordinance that's before you. But I think that the Planning Commission really took a lot of time and detail on this, as Roger explained. And I'd like to thank Roger too. He's been instrumental in helping us shape these ideas into things that are constitutional and hopefully would hold up in the court of law if challenged. So we've been very protective of, and I don't want to say skittish about it, but you know, we're bringing you a proposal that allows for these land uses, but it's not like our neighbors who are, you know, have zero limits on their licenses and, you know, can let it, whatever happen. I think we're taking a more, you know, guarded approach to it and to see how it goes.
Okay, thanks for that. I did have a chat request, Randy, that maybe, I don't know which documents we were thinking about, but at least maybe the chart. Could you put the chart up had the numbers of?
Yeah, let me see if I can get that here.
Toward the bottom of the packet.
Yeah, let me see here.
Because the public may not see all this stuff. They may not go through the whole packet.
Definitions, is that the chart right here, Lynn?
No, I was thinking of the one that said how many establishments could be.
What page is it, Lynn?
What
Page
page?
5 of the regular ordinance, not of the zoning ordinance. You're in the zoning ordinance at the moment. Yeah.
Sorry, no.
Right here,
Yep.
maximum
There you go.
number.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's shared now, so everyone should be able to see that.
Yeah, so this is the recommendation of the commission to have 2 growers maximum, 2 processors, 2 transporters, 4 provisioning centers, 2 compliant safety facilities, 3 micro businesses, 1 event organizer, and then Roger mentioned those 2 at the bottom that had 0. So I just wanted to make sure the public, because you can listen to this discussion and not have a frame of reference either. So that helps a little bit.
And Lynn, Treasurer Johnson is back with us. He's on my speakerphone, so he's good now.
Okay, good. Ernie, I don't know if you had any comments on, I don't know if you've seen the packet or had anything. This is the first reading of the marijuana ordinances and text amendment. I don't know if you want to.
I have no comment right now, no.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, thanks for that, Randy. Well, we have a motion and support. Do we have any other questions for legal or planning? Ryan's on the line too. I know just on some of those meetings that they were working, they did work awfully hard on that, lots of meetings. And if you looked at their minutes, you could see it was meeting after meeting after meeting that they discussed this.
Yeah, it's been about a year-long process. Typically, zoning text amendments don't take that long, but this was a very fragmented information gathering process, and Roger detailed that very well. But it's not, it's not cut and dry. It's not even cut and dry with what the state's doing right now. We're just trying to do the best we can right now with what we have to work with.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else? Okay, we can do a roll call on the first reading.
Yeah, so the motion will be to approve the proposed zoning text amendment to allow for and regulate adult use recreational and medical marijuana facilities. And that's the first reading. And Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Winslow?
Yes.
Trustee Everson?
Yes.
Trustee Marks?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Durant?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries 7-0. It'll be back on our agenda on the 5th for a second reading.
And potential adoption
Correct.
for those in the public, right?
Yeah.
So if Ernie's still listening, just tell him we're working on his medicine.
No.
All right. Consider proposed zoning text amendments to allow for and regulate mobile food trucks. First reading, same attachment as 9F in the packet.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy, folks. We've been noticing these in the community for some time. We're probably a little bit behind the 8 ball on these. But from the fire department's perspective and from township staff perspective, we would just like to ensure that, one, they acquire a township business license, that the mobile food truck is placed on a property entirely within the required parking area that they are required to have, that they provide a copy of the Marquette County Health Department permit as required, and that they operate between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. only. We don't have a rampant problem with these trucks. In fact, a couple of them have reached out previously to staff inquiring whether or not we have a permit. This would not be an expensive permit by any means. It's just an accountability and a housekeeping effort for us to maintain. And, hopefully anybody that conducts business in Marquette Township acquires a business license. So this one's fairly simple, unless there's any questions.
Yep, I saw John's up first. John?
I move for the adoption of the first reading of the proposed zoning text amendments to allow for and regulate mobile food trucks.
Okay,
I'll second that.
sounds good. Pete, did you have your hand up?
Jason, was there any discussion as far as having the food truck so close to a bricks and mortar restaurant? Was there any discussion?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is consider them to be kind of a structure, if you will, and we'll require in the permitting process that they be at least 10 feet away from a brick and mortar structure.
10 feet?
While the fire department, as with any structure, normal fire separation is 10 feet. We can get with the fire department on what, if there's more than that they'd like to see. But we did have some conversations with them recently about a seminar or workshop that they attended. And it actually had to do with some of these places downstate where they have a whole corral of food trucks that show up at one area, and people go at lunchtime and they can choose whatever they want to have. I'm sure, and I know as part of the Westwood Mall's proposal for the UP Food Show that a food truck corral was part of that. So I can follow up with you on that before the second reading, but we can add something to that permit application that requires them to be a specific distance from a brick and mortar structure.
I was just thinking that, you wouldn't want one sitting in the parking lot of Applebee's there, because they have different requirements than they do. So.
But
Right.
do they get permission from wherever they park?
Yes, we kind of wrestled with the fact that who should get the permit, right? The property owner or the food truck. But we chose the food truck because ultimately they would have to have the property owner's signature on the application wherever they plan to hang out. So if that changes, we could track that, I guess, too. But we went with the food truck getting the permit. And then obviously they would have to have the permission of wherever business they're located at to locate their vehicle. Like I said, we don't have a rampant problem with them. We're not going to have a food truck parked outside of Applebee's. I just don't see that happening. Of course, it could happen, I guess. But, we didn't want to narrow where a food truck could be. For instance, if we have if we ever have community days again at Lions Field, we certainly would like to invite the food trucks to show up, because I think that's nice to have that variety with what, the fire department provides. And it would be a nice mix of attractions and availability for folks. So we just thought if the food truck got the permit, then we would, designate on the permit application that you would have to be completely located on or within the property that you're allowed to be at. So it keeps them out of the public right away per se, and keeps them, it's minutia public safety stuff here.
Just a thought.
Mm-hmm. Whose hand was up? Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, that was my question too, is what about the property owner? I mean, if what do you have in it that if they don't want you on your property and they show up, what recourse does the township have to ask them to leave if they're not wanted there? I mean, like you say, it may not ever happen at Applebee's, but then again, it may. So where do we stand on that?
The provision in the ordinance under section 1614, mobile food trucks, it says, in addition to complying with the other relevant sections of this ordinance, petitioners desiring to secure a permit to conduct a mobile food truck as defined in section 202 shall also abide by the following regulations. A, mobile food trucks shall be located entirely within the required off-street parking area of the host's private property. And I think our intent of that language was that they would have permission to locate there.
Okay. I think they're great. I love the food, but I just want to protect the property owner also and make sure that they have that permission to be there. And what recourse is there if they don't have the permission?
Yeah, the property owner could always, if they were adversely affected by a food truck being there, they could call the sheriff's department on a trespassing call.
Okay.
Roger, did you have your hand up?
Not really, but I did have a comment. I was, unlike the marijuana ordinance that I was intimately involved in assisting with, I wasn't on this one. But it looks like you have a typographical error in the first line, sixth word. I believe that the word of should probably be all. In addition to complying with all other relevant sections, not complying with of other relevant sections?
That's correct. Yeah, we talked about this via email earlier. I apologize for not
That's
bringing
okay.
that
I
up.
just thought if it's a first reading, we probably ought to fix that.
I know a few years ago when the taco truck first came out, I did stop them at the medical center and I said, would you consider coming over to the hotel? Because my thought was something different for our parents from Northern when they came for Parents Weekend. It would have been kind of nice to have something like a treat for them. You know, I wouldn't be providing it, but that was before we got into this and they weren't really established and they were the only truck. And they said, well, Marquette Township doesn't have I didn't let on who I was, but they just said they don't have a thing set up where we can go and just easily get a license. And I said, then you call the planner or the administrator and get in there and tell them they need to do it. Cause I thought that would have been kind of fun. So if, you know, any of the other hotels wanted to do that, or if you were having a party, a birthday party at your house and you wanted to have them park in the parking driveway, you know, as long as you have the permission of the owner, you could use them however you wanted to.
They did show up for our Northern Michigan hockey thing at the ice rink for 1 year.
Hmm.
Well, and this may not be the only retail-based zoning text amendment that comes at you in the next year. I mean, there are a lot of sectors that are changing, right? So as a planning and zoning staff, Ryan and I and Roger and John Kangas, our manager, we're always going to be or try to be ahead of the curve on how to accommodate new and upcoming land uses. And this is, I guess, one that kind of fell through the cracks, but we really didn't have, and we still don't have an issue with them. It's not like, you know, we're being overrun with food trucks on private properties and people are complaining. Not like how controversial they were when they first came out, as opposed to brick and mortar businesses who are paying property and income taxes and things like that is a little bit different now than it was back then. It's not frowned upon, if you will, the way that they initially kind of were. So yeah, we're just trying to do a little bit of housekeeping, keep up on top of our zoning ordinance, and allow for them to be in our community.
Well, it's a little different too than downtown. I mean, if you've got one parked on 3rd and Washington and you've got 3 restaurants right there, they're on the public street, but you know, so there's your 10-foot if you want to be, I don't know, like that's where all the problem came in the beginning. You're right next to restaurants.
Parked outside of the Casa.
What else? Anybody? John?
I just want to comment that the staff and our attorney are ahead of the curve.
Well, thanks, John.
Okay, it's been so long. Do we even have a motion? I don't remember.
We do.
Okay, anything else then? Go ahead, Randy.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the first reading of the proposed zoning text amendments to allow for and regulate mobile food trucks. And the motion was made by trustee Marks.
Yes.
And second was trustee Winslow.
Yes.
Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Trustee Everson.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
Clerk Rattari, yes, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries 7-0.
Do we have any public comment emails, Randy?
I will look, but I do not have any.
Okay. Any other public comment? We still have some folks in the audience. Does anybody want to make any comments before we continue? Okay. Any announcements from the board? Nothing going on, hey? Managers report.
This is the time of the night where I say it's the only chance I really get a chance to talk, so I only need an hour of your time. I'm only kidding, of course. I have a one-page written report this go around. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that, but I have a couple of other items I'd like to bring to your attention that have come up. One that I failed to put in my report or to submit to you for consideration of action, and that is consideration of carrying over additional vacation this year. As you know, some of our employees weren't able to really take their vacations the way we would in a normal year, so they haven't used as much of it as they would have. I know we have at least one employee that would like to carry over an additional week, and I don't have a problem with that. We have a use it or we pay for it at the end of the year policy according to our employment agreements. If the board does not object to it, I would like to prepare letters of agreement with both bargaining units to allow an additional week of carryover that would have to be used by the end of May in 2021. That would limit our payouts at the end of the year. I don't believe it applies to that many people. I can think of one in particular, but if the board is okay with that, I would get with both of those units and propose it to them and see if they will consider it. I did sort of run it up the flagpole and didn't get any negative feedback from them. So I guess it's a matter of if there's support from the board to do that. I think it will limit our financial impacts if we do that. We just need to put some restrictions on it so we're not leading to another situation similar to this at the end of 2022. This would be a one-time situation due to COVID.
I think it's a great idea. Board members?
I concur with the manager, and I'd like to make a motion that we allow this to happen with the bargaining units and give them until May of 2021 to use that 1 week.
I'll support.
Okay, comments? All right, Randy?
So the motion will be for the manager to draft letters of agreement for both bargaining units to carry over an additional week of vacation to be used by the end of May 31st of 2021. And I guess that would be it, so. And Trustee Everson.
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Winslow,
Yes.
Trustee Marks,
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. So
Thank you for that. I have one other late breaking piece of news, and that is 906 Technologies has set up call forwarding for all of the employees at Township Hall. So basically they just have to go to their office phone, select their presence as away. And once the phone is set to away, any call going to that phone will automatically be forwarded to their cell phone. So Gavin from 906 just sent me an email minutes ago saying he's completed that process. Now, there is one other change on the auto attendant. When the phone calls come in to the main line, there will be an auto attendant that picks up, and we're gonna have to see if this works for us or not. This is new, and it may only be temporary, but basically it will allow people, if they know the extension of who they're trying to reach, they just enter that extension and the call is going straight to that person's cell phone. So you won't get a human automatically, but you will hopefully get the human that you're trying to reach, and it won't be a voicemail box in a building that they aren't allowed to go to work at. So we're going to try this. I wanted everyone to be aware in case you get some calls from people saying I called and Andra didn't answer. Keep in mind, Andra's not in the office every day either. In fact, we may be forwarding calls coming into the building to her remotely at a cell phone, so somebody can answer the phones if nobody's able to be here to man the front desk. So I shouldn't say man, I know that's a sex terminology, but wanted you to be aware of it, and by all means, provide us feedback if you hear any from the community on how this is going. I have not had a chance to test it yet. This is an email that I received at 8:42 p.m. So the ink is still drying on it.
John, I think I haven't called the office in a while, but it'll say if you know your party's extension, and then it'll give you a big list and say, I think Randy's was 4. Maybe if we even put that at the beginning of the message so people don't have to sit and wait, or if we posted somewhere on the website to make it a little clearer for them, once you determine it's going to work.
If anyone needs my extension, you call in and get that auto attendant. It's 103.
I thought it was 911.
Let's hope we're not there yet.
Okay. That's your purview. You don't need our approval to complete
No,
that.
I wanted you to be aware of it, but I also want you to be cognizant of the fact that this change may not go over well for everybody, and it may not be permanent. We're trying something to make staff more accessible to the public, to hopefully allow calls coming in to be addressed quicker, so they don't have to hang up and call another number or send an email to ensure the staff member actually receives the message. And I should say, I sent an email to staff this morning asking who's interested in this. To a person, they all agreed voluntarily. So they want to be available to the public, even though they are working remotely. So kudos to them.
Cool. Okay. Any questions for the manager?
I have a
Pete?
question. John, a while back, we talked about these wipables and, in the public works and that. And on one of them, on the Clorox one, it says do not flush. And then the other generic one, it says throw in the trash. But it's so small that I really had to put the magnifying glasses on just to read it, But it is on there on the Clorox one anyway, do not flush.
Well, interesting that you should bring that up, because there are wipes that are specifically designed to be flushable.
Yeah.
It says flushable right on the packaging.
Really?
I would advise anyone using those wipes, do not flush them, even if it says they are, because they don't biodegrade quick enough to avoid jamming up our grinder pumps in particular. And we've got 400 of them in the township. So fortunately, we haven't had significant issues with it, which means the residents in the township are being smart, and I hope we can continue to see that. Where we've seen the issues actually have been in the gravity sewers, where you just don't have the high pressure flow to keep everything moving. And surprisingly in the commercial districts. So pinning down where they're coming from is going to be very difficult. And I would just say, if you're using a wipe for anything, throw it in the trash, not in the toilet.
Okay, anything else for the manager? Good deal. Randy, you want to review the motions?
Okay, so the first motion was to approve the consent agenda as presented, and that was approved. The second motion was to approve the regular agenda as presented, and that was approved. Third motion was to approve trustee Winslow to the Planning Commission, and that was approved. Fourth motion was to approve the township meeting schedule for 2021, and that was approved. The fifth motion was to put on the next agenda the request of the Home Builders Association use of the Westwood Mall, and that was approved. The sixth motion was to approve the revised fiscal year 2021 budget resolution and General Appropriation Act, and that was approved. The seventh motion was to approve the return of $7,000 to the state of Michigan CARES money, and that was approved. The 8th motion was to approve the Marquette County interlocal agreement for the county designated assessor, and that was approved. The 9th motion was to approve the proposed zoning text amendment to allow for and regulate adult use, recreational, and medical marijuana facilities, first reading, and that was approved. In the 10th motion was to approve the proposed zoning text amendments to allow for and regulate mobile food trucks, first reading, and that was approved. And the 11th motion of the evening was to have the manager draft letters of agreement for both bargaining units to allow for carryover of 40 hours of vacation to be used by May 31st of 2020. And that was approved.
2021.
Or 2021, I mean. And that was approved, and that's it. And you're on mute, Lynn.
Because my alarm was going off. So we have 3 future agendas already, besides what I've given Andra. The home builder's decision, marijuana second reading, and the mobile food truck second reading. Anything else anybody else wants to put on the agenda? Just, if you don't know, just let me know. All right, any board member comments to share? Pete?
I'd like to just say one thing, the planning commission, some of you wake up Mike and tell him I'm going to say something nice. What a good job they've done over the last year on this marijuana thing. I attended several meetings on it, and it just seems like they dig into so many things, and I just, they really should be applauded. Dave and Mike and Johnson and all the rest of them. I don't want to miss any names, but they did. I was very impressed with it, and I enjoy when people are tweaking things. And so I wanted to say thank you for that, for the long time to get that all that done. Jason and Ryan, and so thank you very much.
Good.
I concur.
Linda, you have your hand up.
I do. We have a beautiful Christmas display on Cox Street. If anyone's out and about looking for some entertainment, it is walkable and people are staying there social distancing apart. The only thing that is a bit of an issue is the parking. People are parking on both sides of the street. So that's dangerous. And if you're the fire truck, you're not going to get through. So do we refer that to the road committee? Is there an option, and this is just a comment, an option to have parking only on one side of the street during the month of December?
Linda, is that Cox or Vanderboom?
Oh, Vandenboom, not
All right.
Cox. Yeah, right, you're right, Vandenboom. I live on Cox, no. Yeah, it's beautiful, but it also is a bit of a hazard for parking.
Lynn, could I just say one thing? Lynn, could I just say one more thing? For people to go around and look at the lights, I'll tell you what our family did, because we don't get together and we don't mix and all that. But we rode around in 4 different cars, and my daughter called each one of us up, and we had a live phone. I could talk to anyone in the 4 cars, and it really worked out good. I was very happy about it. So you like to be together, but you can't. And so that's how that worked. But if people want to do it, get in the car, call each other, and then you can ride around and listen to each other's comments.
Good idea. What else? Any other board member comment? Okay, we just need one more motion then.
I move to adjourn.
Support.
Okay, roll call.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee Marks,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes?
Trustee Winslow,
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. I got 9:04 PM.
Me too. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Roger, thanks for all your work.
Have a great
Yep.
Christmas, everybody.
Thank you for all the things you have done, all the
Yeah.
background work, and thank you very